So, hi everyone. Glad to see that you're branching out from just studying just in classrooms. So সেখান থেকে you're also doing this, the grassroots network, and these skill buildings will also help you a lot. তো আজকের সেশনটা I am a very informal person in terms of taking these sessions. So I like to talk more about stories than actually show stuff because প্রথমত খুব কম সময়ের জন্য সেশন, সো সেখানে আসলেই একটা ফুল টুল বা একটা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ টিউটোরিয়াল করানোটা তো সম্ভবই না। বাট এই সেশনে আই ওয়ান্ট টু শো ইউ যে এই এনিথিং রিলেটেড টু পলিসি, এনিথিং রিলেটেড টু গভর্নেন্স, সেখানে ডেটা কতটুকু ইম্পর্টেন্স প্লে করে, অ্যান্ড মোর ইম্পর্টেন্টলি হাউ উই ক্যান ইউজ দ্যাট ডেটা, সেই ডেটাটা ইউজ কিভাবে করতে পারি, চ্যালেঞ্জেস কি আছে, and how to go forward. After today's session, at least you will know, what are the tools you can use, how you can work with them, etc., etc. So to start with, what we can do is, so one request before we start actually, and that is, since this is a very informal session, I actually request everyone to do two things. One is not to hesitate for asking questions, because again, I take a session like I'm having a simple conversation with you all. So jodi kono questions thake ba kono concerns thake, just raise, you don't even have to raise your hand, just interrupt me and ask a question. Would be perfectly fine. The other is, what I found out all the time is, goto 3 bochore we have been a species which talks to our computers and our webcams more than we talk to human beings, thanks to COVID and all these things. So it's very, I'm just looking at the screen right now and talking. And whether the other side you are human beings or chair, table, or not even like maybe homo supernatural, I have no idea. So why not we try our best to keep our videos on. That helps me interact with you. And jeta hoy je video on thakle, you will give more attention because you'll be more concerned about the fact that manush ki bolche amake dekhe. So seta chinta kore dekha jabe je ekটু বেশি মনোযোগ দেয়া হবে. So if it's not too much of a problem for you, my advice, keep the video on. So these are the two house rules I have to start with. তাছাড়া বাকি সবকিছু is very straightforward. আমরা just আজকে discuss করবো on sources of data, how we can use data and all this. So I have a text from someone. Can we have a course with some programming language and data so that we can become able to? Yes, but that is a course that is on 45 minutes. Right now, Jaman, for example, I'm teaching University of Liberal Arts faculties on how to code in Python, and that's a 10-week long thing. So we can have those courses and you can start talking to YPF about them, but they are long-term investments, long-term, I would say, long-term commitments from my side as well. So we can, but that's opposite, like a different discussion, I would say. But thank you for asking this question, Nafir. For everyone else, again, feel free to unmute yourself and talk if you want to, or just, drop a line in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that as well. So let me start sharing my screen and start talking, right? The session to shuru kori. So, sorry, I have too many screens in front of me. So this one, interpreting data for policy making. Again, as I say that I'm a storyteller, I like telling stories. So if you can see my screen, I'll start telling stories. So this one is actually a story that from my own work actually. So looks fancy, but it's nothing. It hocche Bonani 11 numberer bridge e uthar age Mina Bazar. Che Mina Bazar dokan. That's it. So Mina Bazarer floor. So 2015, so I started working with data from 2014. So 15-16 dike was my first ever large-scale analytics project. যেখানে I worked on understanding so two things. First of all, Mina Bazar wanted to know how people make purchasing, and in their Mina Bazar, আরেকটা হচ্ছে তারা জানতে চাচ্ছিল যে কোন layout combination is the most optimal layout combination to increase the sales. So প্রথমটায় যেটা করলাম আমরা, what we did is we tracked a custom, like not a customer, total, we tracked around 870 customers across the store. How did we track them? Well, shops like Mina Bazaar has CCTV cameras. So we have CCTV footages. And today we have video recognition software that can একটা মানুষকে দেখা দিলে তার প্রত্যেকটা মুভমেন্ট ফলো করতে পারে 2016তেও 15-16তেও এটা ক্যাপাবল ছিল কিন্তু first of all Mina Bazaar didn't give us enough money and that at that time that video recognition was very expensive. So what we did was, I'm not proud of it by the way, আমি আগে থেকেই বলে দিচ্ছি সংবিধিগত সতর্কীকরণ. What we did was go for cheap labor, which is interns. So I was a university faculty then, Northern University পড়াতাম. So I had quite a few interns and we gathered like few of the faculty's interns into this project. তাদের কাজই ছিল বসে বসে ভিডিও ক্যামেরা দেখে দেখে একটা মানুষের মুভমেন্ট দেখা. So এটা যেমন একটা মানুষের মুভমেন্ট কিন্তু সেই শপে ঢুকে কোথায় কোথায় কিনছে, কোথায় কোথায় কিনেনি বা থামছে, purchasing and non-purchasing. Not most people have guessed. This person was very confused. This was like, I think we followed this person for 35 minutes in the shop. So what the interns did is like, এরকম একটা sheeter মধ্যে they would mark, and then all these information would come to me as in terms of images, and I will process those images to get interesting insights. So যেটা হয় যে একটা শপিং মলে বা একটা মানে মিনা বাজারের মতন একটা জায়গায় চেক আউটের সময় জাস্ট আমরা জানতে পারি কি কি মানুষটা কিনছে, কিন্তু সেটা কিন্তু সবচেয়ে বেশি ইম্পর্টেন্ট না. বেশি ইম্পর্টেন্ট হচ্ছে যে কি কেনা নাই, সে কোথায় কোথায় দাঁড়ায় ছিল. যেমন সে যদি একটা আইলে অনেক লম্বা সময় দাঁড়ায় থাকে, তার মানে হচ্ছে সে ডিবেট করতেছে কিনবে কি কিনবে না, বাসায় গেলে কি বউ মাইর দিবে কিনা ওটা কিনবে. সো ফেয়ার পয়েন্ট. অনেক জায়গায় আছে যে ধরো নিয়ে আবার কিছু তোমার ফেরত এসে ফেরত দিয়ে চলে গেল. এগেইন এগুলোকে আমরা বলি ফ্রিঞ্জ পারচেজ. আবার অনেক সময় কিছু আছে সে দাম ডান টাকা লই না পার হয়ে গেল, তার মানে নট ইন্টারেস্টেড এট অল. আবার কিছু আছে যেগুলোতে সে থেমে চট করে নিয়ে চলে গেল. That basically means সেটা নিবে no matter what. So when we got all this information, it was very interesting to find out people's purchasing behavior patterns. I have a chat coming in. Let me see. So yeah, it's okay. I mean, if you're not prepared for the video, feel free not to turn it on. But yeah, I mean, থাকলে মানুষদের সাথে কথা বলতে মনে হয়, but otherwise I'm used to talking to my laptop either ways. So moving on. তো যেটা হলো যে এইটা করার পর খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং কিছু ইনসাইটস এসেছে. যেমন একটা এসেছিল, এন্ড তোমাদেরকে এই কোয়েশ্চেনটা করি, যে আমরা দেখলাম যে কেউ যদি পোলার চাল কিনে and দই কিনে, it's almost always followed by গরু বা খাসির মাংস পারচেজ. Can anyone tell me why? 90% of the times পোলার চাল and দই কেনার পরপরই খাসির মাংস পারচেজ হয় কি গরুর মাংস. Why?
ভাই কারণ দইটা মানে পোলাও রান্না করা হবে, সাথে হচ্ছে গরু বা খাসির কিছু একটা রান্না করবে যেখানে দইটা ইউজ করা হবে.
ইভেন আমাদের পাশের বাজার লিস্টও এইভাবেই করা হয়, পোলাও দই দুইটা.
সো at the same time তখন দেখা গেল যে তাহলে এই তিনটা জিনিসের সাথে যদি আমি আরেকটা কিছু দিই, সো দিস ইজ দ্য সাইকোলজি অফ ইট, যে একটা মানুষ কিন্তু যদি পোলাও দই এন্ড মাংস চিন্তা করে যায়, সে কিন্তু আর কম খরচে সাইকোলজি থেকে বাইরে হয়ে আসছে, সে কিন্তু এখন হাই স্পেন্ডিং সাইকোলজি আছে. তার ঠিক পাশে যদি একটা ঘি বা একটা প্রোডাক্ট যেটা নিয়ে একটু দাম লাগতে পারে, লাইক সে একটা কোকের বোতল বা কোকের আইলটা ওখানে রাখা হয়, ইট ম্যাক্সিমাইজেস দ্য স্পেন্ডিং অটোমেটিক্যালি. সো এই যে এক্সপেরিমেন্ট গুলো, উই গট টু ডু দ্যাম ফর 6 months. অ্যান্ড আমাদের একটা কম্প্যারিজন ছিল, কারণ হাউ ডু ইউ নো যে বেশি মানুষ স্পেন্ড করতেছে? ইট কুড বি জাস্ট দ্যাট ঈদের দিন দেখে বেশি খরচ হচ্ছে, রাইট? হতে তো পারে. হাউ ডু ইউ নো দ্যাট এই শপে আমার এক্সপেরিমেন্টেশনটা কাজ হচ্ছে? That was what, that's where again we used actually a policy term, যেটার কারণে কিছুদিন আগে যে I keep on forgetting his name, the two, like the Bangladeshi couple who got the Nobel Prize, they got it for RCT, randomized control trial. We used exactly that concept. ঠিক আছে, বনানীর Mina Bazaar, and we just compared it with Gulshan Avenue Mina Bazaar. Why? দুইটাতে সেম ডেমোগ্রাফির মানুষজন যায়, দুইটাতে সেম টাইপ অফ জিনিস আছে. And we used to compare যে এই আইল গুলো সরাই যদি আমরা দিই আমরা, সেটা অনুযায়ী বনানীরটাতে সেল কি সিগনিফিকেন্টলি বেশি কিনা. And we found that yes, it is significantly higher by doing these manipulations. So this is a story example. I know it's not very policy related, but this was a first-hand example from Bangladesh where we saw that how data can actually, first of all, be very interesting and help a company, like, anything. A company, it could be a policymaker, it could be someone who's leading a nation, can help in understanding human behavior. And more importantly, যে জিনিসটা আমি এখানে স্ট্রেস করতে চাই, আমরা যখন ডেটা নিয়ে চিন্তা করি, আমরা সবসময় চিন্তা করি একটা এক্সেল ফাইল, রাইট? টেবিল, রোজ আছে, কলামস আছে, নাম্বারস আছে বা টেক্সট আছে. These are nothing. This was like my data was this. A picture, 870 of these pictures. And that's the thing. And these pictures originated from video, people's movement around the shop. So the first thing I want to stress here is how, when we look at data, it can be so much different than just numbers. It can be behavior. It can be eye emotions. So very recently, I know that America had an accident study, alcoholism leads to higher accidents, but তারপর যে accidents গুলো হয়, সেটাই দেখতে যাচ্ছে যে human eye contact কতটুকু ছিল when they were speeding, কত fluctuate করে while they are speeding. And there, the study is being done with, যে গাড়িগুলো স্টাডিতে পার্টিসিপেট করতে চাইছে তাদের ফ্রন্ট ক্যাম দিয়ে দেখতেছে. And the data here is pupil motion. So data is like everywhere. I'm একটা যুগে থাকি যেখানে নাকি I'm generating data right now by talking to you through Zoom. So it's data everywhere. And it doesn't need to be numbers or text or tabular format. It can be anything. একটা মানুষের হাত পা কিভাবে সে নাড়াচ্ছে, কোন দিকে তাকাচ্ছে, কিভাবে রেসপন্ড করতেছে, সবকিছু is data. Now, I have another chat coming in. Yeah, it's okay. যদি video on na korte pare, it's perfectly fine. You don't have to give me an reason why you're not. I'm not going to check that. Now, moving on. আরেকটা যদি example দিই. This is an example. I first heard from my dad because she United Nations in Mozambique ছিল for a year. And then I read about it in one of the books that changed my life, I would say. So the book's name is Factfulness. I actually am a shameless promoter of the book. So Factfulness, and I think every one of you should read it. I mean, every human being should read it. So the author passed away 2 years back. He actually came to Bangladesh, Asian University for Women. So his name is Hans Rosling. He was a TED speaker as well. And it's actually one of the best books I've read in my life. So this Factfulness, here he tells a very interesting story. So this guy, he was a epidemiologist and a medical statistician. So he used to present medical statistics to United Nations, IMF, and places like that. So he was presenting some data, and then he met the Prime Minister of Mozambique. And the Prime Minister of Mozambique was telling him that, telling the crowd at large, the Prime Minister thinks that Mozambique has developed economically, whereas the data was not supporting it. So this author, Hans Rosling, he reached out to the Prime Minister and said that, look, I don't see that reflected in your GDP or GNP. So your national income, gross domestic product, gross national product, কোনোটাতেই কিন্তু বোঝা যাচ্ছে না যে আসলে কি economy has gone up. But then the Prime Minister said a very moving story. The story that so this is a picture of Mozambique in something called the Flag Day. So Flag Day is actually the day where Mozambique has gained independence from its colonial powers. And Idinta is celebrated very vividly in Mozambique. What they do is everyone takes flags and marches in the roads, in the main roads. So the Prime Minister is like, when people march, যখন মানুষজন মার্চ করে যায়, আমি তখন রাস্তা দিকে তাকায় মানুষজনের জুতা দেখি. Why? Because Flag Day তে সবাই তার বেস্ট জুতাটা পরে, and এখানে এমন একটা দিন যেখানে নাকি কেউ ওই রেন্টাল জুতা পরতে পারবে না, because all the shoes are out. So সবার বেস্ট কেপেবল জুতাটাই পরা লাগে, and everyone wants to wear the best shoes. And over years, I've seen the quality of shoes improve, which means my people can get better shoes, which means our country is economically developed. Again, a very interesting observation. And the author even agrees that after some time, he saw that, yes, Mozambique is showing economic development. So again, an example which tells you that, the data that we work with, when you look into as a policymaker or as a, I would say, budding professional, youngsters interested in policy, one of the things that really saddens me in Bangladesh is that, we make policies, we make our policymakers, our governors, our government makes decisions based on whim. And when we ask people that, what's the evidence or why are you doing this? The answer is, bhai, eta to Bangladesh, eta to data nai. But the true answer is, we are sitting on top of mountains of data, even in a country like Bangladesh, especially in a country like Bangladesh. All we need to do is think. All we need to do is look, and you'll find enormous amounts of data through which you can make proper policy decisions. And this is an example. A country like Mozambique, even today, Mozambique, in terms of technology, is 20 years behind Bangladesh. And yet the prime minister in 2010 was intelligent enough to know that একটা মানুষের জুতার দিকে দেখে তার জুতার ডেভেলপমেন্ট দেখে হয়তোবা এস্টিমেট করা যেতে পারে that the national income is improving. So moving on, this actually basically makes my point here that, আমরা এমন একটা টাইমে চলে আসছি, thanks to smartphones, thanks to cameras and everything, that data একসময় ছিল binary codes, তারপর ছিল numbers and texts. এখন it's pictures, video, audio, body movements, even emotions. Even the speech that I'm speaking in, because my speech is nothing but converted into wavelengths, right? And these wavelengths can be analyzed. যে কোন words গুলোতে আমি high pitch দিচ্ছি, কোন গুলোতে low pitch দিচ্ছি. Maybe the high pitch or the high stress or high emphasis, like the ones that I'm talking right now, are the words that are more important to communication. And that can be analyzed. So we live in a world where data is everywhere. We just have to be determined to find it. Quite a lot of texts. Let's see. But thank you so much, Aaron. Factfulness, journalism for every wrong of the world. Anna Rosling, Hans Rosling. It's actually, the writer is Hans Rosling. Was supported by Ola and Anna Rosling. Tachile and Tachile Bo. They helped him finish it. Wonderful guy. I was emotionally moved after the end of that book, and a must read for all of you. Moving on, now that I'm talking about data, the question is, how do we process data? What's the way of processing the data? So there's a very long cycle. Cycle like the opportunity, right? Life cycle of this, life cycle of that. So why not look at the life cycle of data analytics process? So the data analytics process technically starts with this, a problem identification. That is, we first identify that whether is there, do I need to know something? Do I need to take a decision? Or is we have some data in front of us. Are we trying to find something from there? So that problem identification. Then very important is translating that problem to measurables. So if you think about this, if you think about the Mozambique's prime minister's kotha, that problem identification was like, is my country moving forward economically? Now he's looking into, there are many measures there like GDP, GNP, but they're not showing proper signals. So for him, converting that identification problem, question key measure kora jete pare. So one of the measurable is quality of shoes people are wearing on March day. And then identifying the source of that measurable. দেখা যায় কোথা থেকে সেটা সে দেখবে, সো সে বিভিন্ন জায়গা থেকে এটা অবজার্ভ করেছে। And then establishing collection and reporting, এটা একটু যদি if it's a regular analysis তাহলে এই collection mechanismটিকে automate করা লাগে, but this is a minor step I would say. The next is analysis. So একটা very important জিনিস হচ্ছে when you're analyzing data. So again, this is again one of the things that I see from a lot of youngsters coming in. They say that, okay, bhaiya ei data set paisi, now I want to work. I give them a negative feedback there. No, don't look at the data set to start with. Look for the question first. What do you want to find out? What are the policy challenges you want to answer? What are the, what type of policy issues interest you? Start with that. Second, move to the fact that, okay, এই ধরনের প্রশ্ন বা এই ধরনের কিউরিওসিটি কভার করার জন্য তোমার কি মেজারেবল আছে? What has been measured? What data is there? And what can be a proxy data for that? যেমন যে জুতার quality was a proxy data. So what data is out there? So go to the data later. And when you're going to the data, I also understand how the data is collected. Because you remember one thing, at the term of computer science, it's called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If your data is garbage, regardless of how intelligent you are or how intelligent your analysis is, it's garbage because the data was not to be reliable on. So understand how the data was collected. Then move on to analysis. So you see, analysis, interpreting or analyzing data comes much later. Starts with formation of the question in your mind and identifying how do you measure or what to measure to answer your question. I'm doing a pressing issue. This is something, so I work from time to time in side projects or I would say personal passion projects. So me and a friend of mine, we started on something. If you remember pre-COVID years, Bangladesh actually, the rape issue was becoming a big deal, right? And Bangladesh, when a rape-related issue, so it was always the clothing of the girl in question, right? You know, why did she dress up like that? She was inviting a rapist. So we wanted to go for a global data, find a global data which proves that, you know, it doesn't matter. Even in the most conservatively dressed societies, there is extreme level of rape. And it's not clothing, but it's the way people think. So to do that, we're like, if you want to prove that, we started writing down key measure kora jete pare. So the first thing we wanted to measure is number of rape cases in different countries. Second, we wanted to measure is a religious distribution of those countries. What are the major religion? What is the minor religion? What is the second more religion? Then we wanted to see that, okay, how is like, you know, how much openness is in the dress up? Now that's a hard thing to measure. Well, how do you measure that? So we were looking into many measurables. And one interesting measurable I was suggesting is, you know, how many, say, fashion brands are there? And popular fashion brands are there. How many of them are, say, what's the nature of their clothing? Ektu subjectively dekhe actor score kora, you know, this is the level of openness they have in the dress ups. So that's how you collect the data then next. Then you start analyzing. So the next thing is like, you know, you analyze. If you want to make some predictions, you build a model to make predictions using machine learning, let's say, aromatic algorithms, model build up, but I think that's more advanced. And then very important is communicating your findings is like, you know, what you found out. And even after the analysis, you don't need to go for model building. You can skip that step. This is like a part of the step, but I would say it's an optional step, this one, model building. Oops, sorry about that. It's an optional step. More important is analysis. Then you have to communicate your findings. That is what you found out. Like, what does it mean for the problem that you started with in the first place? And then you identify that, you know, when the solutions that you found out, there has to be gaps in that solution. It must be there. Do you know why? The reason is because you will never get a data set which is perfect. Only in textbooks, only in website tutorials, you'll get a proper database. No database, over time, as I have matured as a data professional, if you come to me saying that this is the data set for this, I point out 1,000 weaknesses in there. So no data is perfect, but that's the beauty of it, which means this cycle never ends. Start with the problem, get the best possible data, analyze, find out what your problem solve, and then find out what you couldn't answer. And then think what else in the data can help you answer that. The cycle continues. And it's a never-ending cycle. It will go on. But this is the process. Now, before I would say that, you know, how to do this or the advices on the approaches, but there are challenges as well. And I mean, you know, for you to start in this area, I think it's very important to know these challenges and approaches more than the tools and techniques, because the tools and techniques. So, you know, everyone can do it. But right jaga perekta kivabe marba. But would the perek would be the answer? That's what I'm trying to answer here in this session. The approach, the things that you need to keep in mind before you join or start your journey here. Now, oops, sorry, yeah, I already went to the next slide, but yeah. So the first challenge is actually, again, this story is about Red Indians. So the Red Indians, or the Aboriginals in America, so what they, like, their chief, the Red Indian chief, was supposed to have supernatural power. And the supernatural power is that, you know, he's able to predict the weather, because they don't stay in buildings, stone buildings or concrete buildings. They stay in tippy tents, even in winter. And American winters can be very harsh. So the Red Indian chief is supposed to predict that how cold the winter will be. And Chita Anujay is gonna suggest that, how much wood to collect. So this is a modern time story. So this person gets to be the Red Indian chief and summertime. And the tribe chief, is it going to be cold this winter? Chief it's going to be very, very cold. Red Indian wood collect করা শুরু করলো। এখন the chief being a normal human being with no supernatural power felt bad যে আচ্ছা এটা যে বললাম কোনো তো ভিত্তি ছিল না, কি করি? সো সে নিয়ারেস্ট টাউনে গেল, টাউনে যায় ফোন বুথ থেকে ওয়েদার অফিসকে কল করলো, and weather office is hi, is it going to be cold this winter? Weather office is like, yes, it's going to be very, very cold. Chief is happy. Okay, যা বলছি লেগে গেছে, অন্তত ডিটেইল ছুঁছিলাম। So he comes back and then almost like fall এর সময় যখন নাকি আস্তে আস্তে ঠান্ডা থেকে ঠান্ডা পড়বে ওই সময়, তখন রেজিন্স আবার আসলো যে chief, is it going to be cold this winter? And he's like, yes, it's going to be very cold. And রেজিন্স আরো excessively wood collect করা শুরু করলো for fire. And then chief again felt bad. He went to the city and he again called in the phone booth to the weather office, and he's like, is it going to be cold this winter? And the weather people is like, yes, it's going to be very, very cold. It's like, okay, I'm right. So he comes back again. So it's almost winter. The Red Indians again go up to him and say that, okay, chief, is it going to be cold this winter? And he's like, yes, it's going to be very, very cold. And again, he goes to the nearest city. Again, chief telephone booth galo and weather office, is it really going to be cold this winter? And the weather office is like, yes, it's going to be very, very cold. But this time, the chief follows up with another important question. The question is, how do you know? And the weather office is like, look at the Red Indians, they're collecting wood. So you see what's happening here, right? No one knows it's going to be cold this winter. Chief যার কাছ থেকে ভ্যালিডেশন পাচ্ছে সে রেড ইন্ডিয়ান চিফের কথার মানুষজন যারা কাজ করতেছে তাদের দিকে তাকায় আছে। So no one in this whole cycle knew is it going to be cold or not. And this is actually one very important problem that applies to our data analytics. যেটা বললাম যে today we are awash with data. অনেক data আমাদের এখন। Challenge is not getting the data. Challenge is getting the right data. Because when we don't get the right data, we get memes like যে আমাদের ভাই মেসি ধর্মগ্রহণ করেছেন after he didn't shave, তার জন্য আল্লাহ পাকের কাছে দোয়া. So we get stuff like that when we don't verify the source of information. So the first and most important thing about data is that you have to verify your collection, identify the right data. Ask yourself that data আমি measure করতে চাই সেটা কি আদৌ সম্ভব কিনা measure করা, and the information আমার কাছে আসতেছে এটা কোথা থেকে আসতেছে. That's the start. The second one is from a Second World War story. So দ্বিতীয় বিশ্বযুদ্ধের সময় this was actually a very Second World War was a start of usage of science in military technology, usage of great minds at that time like Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge to help in winning the war. So one such project was SRI, Strategic Research Initiative by Cambridge, and there were people, very intelligent people like Nobel laureates helping the Allies win the war. So later stages of the war, this bomber was used. It's called B-12 or arekta naam chilo Flying Fortress. The Flying Fortress একটা problem ছিল যে when you get used to send in the bombing runs, initially the casualty rate was very high, maximum ফেরত আসতো না, almost 40% casualty rate. Now they used to collect a lot of data, and the data was যেগুলো ফেরত আসতেছে সেই প্লেনগুলো কোথায় গুলি খেয়েছে সেই জায়গাগুলো ম্যাপ করতো, and then সবগুলো অ্যাগ্রিগেট করতো দেখার জন্য কোথায় ম্যাক্সিমাম গুলি খেয়েছে, এবং যেসব জায়গায় ম্যাক্সিমাম গুলি খেয়েছে সেগুলোতে রিইনফোর্সমেন্ট দিত so that they are more স্ট্রঙ্গার, যেন পড়ে না যায়। কিন্তু যতই ইমপ্রুভমেন্ট করা হোক না কেন this didn't lead to much. The improvement was not there until a point someone pointed out that look, we have been doing the wrong thing for first 6 months. Someone was like, look at this, we are looking at the planes which are coming. That's wrong. We're asking the wrong question here. যারা ফেরত আসতেছে ওদের যেসব জায়গায় বেশি গুলি খাইছে সেগুলোতে যেখানে লাভ নেই, বিকজ তারা ফেরত আসছে, গুলি খেয়েও ফেরত আসছে। সো এগুলোতে স্ট্রঙ্গার বানাতে লাভ নেই। Rather the question is যেগুলো আসে নাই সেগুলো কোথায় গুলি খাইছে, and the answer is very simple. যেগুলো আসছে সেগুলো যেখানে গুলি খাইছে সেগুলো বাদ দিলে বাকি যতগুলো জায়গা আছে মোস্ট প্রবাবলি যেগুলো আসে নাই সেগুলো ওখানে গুলি খাইছে। So start reinforcing that. Just a single second realization. And that realization turned the whole thing around. The 40% survival rate, 40% casualty rate became 8% casualty rate. 100টার মধ্যে 60টা যেখানে ফেরত আসতো, now 100টার মধ্যে 92টা ফেরত আসে। So the second most challenge is to understand that what is the right question. First of all, what is the right data? Second is what is the right question. Asking the right question to the data. Now, how do you do that? Technically, honestly speaking, from experience, I would say that there is no golden rule here. Okay, read this book or read this blog or use this method and you'll always get the right question. This is where I think experience helps. The more you look at data, the more different projects you look at. People do many projects online. If you look at this data projects, if you read up, slowly you'll understand what is the question to ask. And it's always good to ask too many questions to the data, because when you get a data set, no one will tell you that, okay, এই যে data set nila 5টা প্রশ্ন করতে পারবা, or it's not like Aladdin's genie, 3 questions and then you're done. No, you can ask 3 million questions. So ask many questions to understand what the data is telling you. So now I'm going to jump a little forward that how to do. So একটা তো বললাম যে মানে importance of data and the challenges, but now what are the approaches of analysis? So I think, and এখানে খুব generically দেখাচ্ছি because again, going to 2 level would be impossible in our time zone. So first of all is exploratory. Exploratory means that you technically don't have a very specific question. আমরা কোনো কিছু একটা প্রমাণ করতে চাচ্ছি না বা কোনো কিছু একটা বের করতে চাচ্ছি না specific. আমরা just একটা data নিয়ে ঘাটতে চাচ্ছি. We want to explore. We want to see what the data tells me. যেমন যদি এরকম হয় যে ধরো DGHS নামে একটা সার্ভে হয় globally, which is like, housing survey বলে. It's world's biggest housing survey. So DGHS এর data I think WHO and World Bank publicly available করে. Now এই ডেটাটা থেকে if you're just interested to understand যে ঢাকার বাইরে বাংলাদেশে second tier যে সিটি গুলো আছে, যেমন Chittagong is not a second tier city, it's a first tier city. Sylhet almost a first tier city, but I'm talking about Rajshahi, I'm talking about Kumilla. So এই যে second tier cities গুলো আছে সেখানে আবার তার চারপাশের এরিয়ায় হাউজিং সিচুয়েশনটা কেমন সেটা যদি জানতে চাও, you just go through that data set, ask many questions to it, and not specific questions but many different questions like কি ধরনের what is the average family size, who are the main bread earners, কয়জন male bread earner, কয়জন female bread earner, কয়জন what is the average age of the children. And so you ask many questions and explore the data set. So that's basically exploratory analysis. The next we have is prescriptive. Prescriptive মানে হচ্ছে it's a problem driven thing. We have a problem in our hand and সেই প্রবলেমটা সলভ করতে যাচ্ছি. So it could be like okay, say for example আমাদের যে Rohingya refugee problem. So say for example I want to know that okay, 18 বছরে how much of Rohingya refugees have been repatriated, or not repatriated, actually absorbed in the workforce of Chittagong or of the Cox's Bazar region. Now that's a specific question. So সেটা answer করার জন্য we need to go for prescriptive analysis. যেখানে আমরা একটা cause and effect বের করার চেষ্টা করব. Okay, the more the funding or what leads to absorption of Rohingya skills or Rohingya workforce in our economy. So সেখানে আমরা দেখতে পারি যে is it the government aid that is helping, or is it the NGO aid, or is it like all these skill development programs যেগুলো হচ্ছে ওখানে Rohingya camps গুলোতে, what is it that's helping? So this is where there is a specific question and আমরা একটা cause বের করতে যাচ্ছি. But a cause and effect, we're trying to find the cause of an effect happening. যদি আমি বলি যে আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে বাংলাদেশে যে এনার্জি ক্রাইসিসটা হচ্ছে, what is the main cause of that? So identifying a cause of it. So this is where things can be tricky as well, because sometimes we get real causes, but sometimes data can be misrepresented as well. Or যেটা হয় যে অনেক সময় যদি আমরা অত, I would say, diligent না হই বা অত careful না হই, we can get very interesting and false causalities, something like this diagram. I would give you some minutes to look at it. So I'm confident that Nicolas Cage's movie appearance has nothing to do with people drowning in pool. But yes, they are correlated. Very interesting. And it's not made up data, it's real data. But that doesn't prove the cause that, Nicolas Cage movie to dekhle manusjon suicide hore. So that's prescriptive. The next one is predictive. Predictive is where আমরা একটা set of data দিয়ে একটা prediction করি. We make a prediction. যেমন যদি আমি কিছুদিন আগে বলি যে একটা এক্সাম্পল দিই, কিছুদিন আগে ব্র্যাকের মাইক্রোফাইন্যান্স টিমের সাথে আমি কাজ করছিলাম। And with them, the challenge was actually trying to figure out যে যাদেরকে আমরা ক্ষুদ্র ঋণ দিই বা ক্ষুদ্র লোনস দিই, মাইক্রো লোনস, এই মাইক্রো লোনের কার কার কতটুকু ইন্টারেস্ট রেট দিলে তারা সময় মতন আমাকে ফেরত দিতে পারবে। কারণ one of the biggest problems with micro loans or a ক্ষুদ্র লোনের প্রবলেমটা হচ্ছে the interest rate piles up, and at a point it becomes so bad that people even commit suicide. So how do you stop that? To find that, we looked into যাকে লোনটা দেওয়া হচ্ছে তার many properties, like তার crop details, তার financial details, household details, to build a model that helps me predict যে কোন মানুষকে কতটুকু লোন দিলে and কতটুকু ইন্টারেস্ট চার্জ করলে সেটা ফেরত দিতে পারবে, তার ফেরত দেওয়ার পসিবিলিটি কতটুকু। So that's predictive models, which uses data to make a prediction. But this can be very data heavy, very technicality heavy. But yes, all of you can do that because, so I'll tell you a little bit later how to build these skills. And honestly speaking, all of you can do it. So I'll give some advice about that a little bit later. Moving on, যদি আমি বলি যে analysis এর জন্য key advices. So প্রথমত, it's very important to know the data. That is, when you look at the data, read the first line of the data. Understand that data ta ki niye kotha bolche. You don't need to dhoro ekhon if your data has 1 million rows, you cannot read everyone. But ei je jerokom ami amar ekta customer data dekhalam, ekta sheet, and take je follow korlam. Read one entry to understand what's happening, what you have in your hand. That's one. Second is ekটু age jeta bolechilam je ask every possible question, especially questions যেটার answer হয়তো you don't already have in your head. One of the biggest problems we have, it's a behavioral bias we have, is something we say confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is where আমি যে জিনিসটা মনে করি সেটার প্রুভ হবে বা সেটাই রাইট, সেটার এক্সাম্পল গুলো আমি চুজ করতে বেশি লাইকলি. So this is what happens when people analyze data as well. You might start with an assumption and দেখা যাবে যে ওই অ্যানালাইসিস গুলোই করলাম যেটার assumptions গুলো meets my answers or my expectations. Don't do that. Remove your assumptions and start asking every possible questions. একটা ডেটা সেটে অনেকগুলো কলাম থাকে, অনেকগুলো ইনফরমেশন থাকে, প্রত্যেকটা ইনফরমেশনকে ঘেটে দেখা যে কি বলছে. What is the relationship with this information with that information? What is the relationship with this variable with that variable? Very important. And the last thing is যেটা আমি সবাইকে বলি সবসময়, I've had many youngsters like you come up to me and say that, Bhaiya, I want to be an data analytics person or a data scientist. Give me a very quick way to learn these things. I'm still looking for that answer. And I've been looking for that answer for the last 10 years in my life. Unfortunately, there is none. This is how the reality of life is. If a skill is in demand, if a skill is very highly looked for, that means it is a hard skill, not an easy one. It takes time. Any good analysis project, any policy, if you want to analyze some data to understand something about a policy or take a decision related to policy, you need to take time. It would require একটা কোনো data analysis করতে, it's not a month-long or a day-long project. Any basic project I've done in my life so far, it has taken me at least a month or half a month to do anything good. So it requires a lot of patience, a lot of dedication, and it doesn't mean that এক মাস ধরে শুধু ওইটাই করছি না খাওয়া বাদ দিয়ে ভাই চাকরিও আছে জীবনও আছে I'm a gamer so game খেলা আছে I'm a serial procrastinator recent times I'm a serial TV series watcher so এগুলো আছে আর এগুলো ছাড়া সম্ভব না জীবন থেকে but ওই যে dedicated time বের করে একটু করে করা for a long time these are the advice now useful resources how do you build these skills so এখন আমি একটু বের হয়ে আসি PowerPoint presentation থেকে let me reshare my screen to a Chrome window যেখানে I'm going to jump around a little bit so where are my Chrome windows this one so I think the first is actually I would say read some blogs okay about analytics so Jamon actually I don't want to self-promote much but I did work a little bit on this so I know Bangladesh we have to use VPN to see Medium which is surprising but Medium this article is kind of helpful so I've actually gathered all the advices about how to become a data analyst from any background here in this article the steps towards becoming a data analyst for someone from business studies বলছি because business studies মানে হচ্ছে তার কোনো mathematical background নেই সেখান থেকে সে কিভাবে এই স্কিলটা ডেভেলপ করতে পারে also there is one article on demystifying big data which is like অনেকগুলো টার্ম আমরা ইউজ করি সেই টার্মস গুলো আসলে কি মিন করে and few days back I wrote this article this was actually not an article more like I'm part of many Facebook forums যেখানে হচ্ছে data analytics society of Bangladesh or data science society of Bangladesh and I see some really interesting posts where I see that people discouraging others যে ভাই না computer science বা engineering background না হলে আপনি data science কিছু করতে পারবেন না so I clarify these points so a few days back I actually wrote this actually this was a review forum discussion যেখানে নাকি আমি চারটা questions আসছিল so oops sorry not this one wait. So this was which one this one 4 useful questions so this question was actually asked by a junior in that forum and I took some time to answer these questions like what are the requirements to be a data scientist how data science have any does a certification কত খরচ হতে পারে তারপর how much does it cost does it take to be a data scientist কত effort লাগে and where can I get proper guidance so any information গুলো I wrote detail about them and পরে মনে হলো যে why not write a blog post about it so you can start with this place I'll just share my Medium link again I think VPN ছাড়া চলবে না which is again I have severe questions of why these things are like this in Bangladesh but now another very important so this is where you can start about the skills now I know that a discussion শুরুতে there was programming language tools নিয়ে কথা হয়েছিল so I'll show you few tools actually there is this tool called right here Google Data Studio it's a very easy tool if you play around with it and there are some tutorials about it so here Google Data Studio you can actually learn use this tool to load data and quickly generate reports quickly generate visualizations সেরকম আরেকটা tool আছে which is called Tableau and if you're a student then Tableau is free for you for 1 year so but you need to log in and create an account with your student account so you need to have an email address @ say du.edu or something like that so when you have that or they will ask for your can you what again ID card ছবি ওটা দিলে এক বছর কি actually 2 বছরের জন্য দিয়ে দেয় কারণ পরের বছরটা ফ্রি রিনিউয়াল করে দেয় ওরা that's free for everyone and Tableau has very good resources to teach yourself so they have resources getting started and learn Tableau all videos that you can learn by yourself so that's another place so these are what we call business intelligence softwares যেগুলো হচ্ছে শুধু business intelligence they help you generate quick visualizations quick reports to quickly get a summary of the data that you're working with then there is another way if you want to learn coding and analysis using data then my favorite is 2 places if you are okay to spend some money then there is a paid resource called DataCamp there are many others but DataCamp I'm a fan of and again oderke ami je boli je can pay them and go for these lessons I can assure you ওদের এই revenue থেকে আমাকে 5 পয়সা দেওয়া হয় না but I still say it because I started my journey from here I learned from DataCamp to start with, and I found them to be really worth it. So one place. Another, if you're looking for free resources, this is another favorite place of mine. This is ideal for learning Python, Kaggle courses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy these links to you right now so that your links go on a page out. And I would say the article that I've given, okhane ami aro elaborate korechi. So my advice is go through that article if you want to know a little bit more on how to start your journey here or how to learn these tools and techniques. And then you can also see these resources. One of them paid, rest all of them are free. So I'll tell you one thing, that why business background? I like to go engineering. So if you, I don't know, like, I don't, most, like, I mean, I've been pretty old, so my background, most people don't know. But my background, I come from a Dhaka University, BBA background, IBM. So zero technical and zero engineering background. And the maths we were introduced to in our undergrads, I think I did more maths in A-levels, P1, P2. Or C1, আমাদের সময় ছিল C1 to C4. So C1, C2, C3, C4 যে maths করছি সেটা 4 বছরের ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকে 10 গুণ কঠিন ছিল. So that's the math I was introduced to. Which basically means that if I could come here and talk about interpretation or work as a data strategist, anyone can. Just takes effort. It's a hard skill to develop. It took me more effort. I mean, compared to say if you're an engineer or if you're from a science specialization, it might be easier for you. For non-science specialization, I know people would reach out to you and say that, okay, bhai, mane eta kintu shudhu engineer der jonno ba shudhu jara khub bhalo maths paয় tader jonno not really. You can. Just takes some effort. A lot of effort. So this kind of summarizes the whirlwind of what I'm trying to show to you. I mean, I really apologize if I have overloaded you with the stuff that I've said and Akebari went on incessant rant, but consider this as 6-7 hours of stuff that I've just shared you in 50 minutes. So thank you from my side. I'm open to taking any questions from you.
Shahareen Apu raised hand. Apu, you can ask your question.
Hello. আমি আসলে পলিটিক্যাল সায়েন্স ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডে আছি, আর রিসেন্টলি আমার একজন ফ্রেন্ড সে হচ্ছে মাইগ্রেশন নিয়ে বেসিক্যালি বাংলাদেশে থেকে যে ইমিগ্রেন্টসরা যাচ্ছে, বেসিক্যালি মিডল ইস্টে যারা যাচ্ছে, তো সেক্ষেত্রে কিছু ডাটা কালেকশন করব, এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের ইনিশিয়াল চিন্তা। এখন যেহেতু আমরা দুজনে 4th ইয়ারে আছি, একটা জিনিস আপনি বললেন যে ডাটা কালেকশনের জন্য অথবা ডাটা অ্যানালাইসিসের জন্য সময় লাগে। তো সেক্ষেত্রে যেহেতু মাইগ্রেশন টপিকটা অনেক বেশি আলোচিত, বিভিন্ন এনজিও এটা নিয়ে কাজ করে বিভিন্ন সাইট থেকে, ধৈর্য কিভাবে ধরে রাখবো এটার জন্য? এটা সবচাইতে বড় টেনশন লাগে।
So, I mean, if you take your time to ask really good questions, then you don't have to worry about other people doing what you're doing. See, the thing is, this is how the world of science has evolved. Newton and Laplace, same time calculus developed করেছে. So things can go in tandem, but what matters when I say take time, because when you rush, you get quick insights, you miss out the real stuff. When you go slowly, you might pick up something that's pure gold. যেটা অনেকে হয়তো pick up করেনি. It's all about going into detail. I hope I could answer your question.
Yes, it was very helpful. কারণ আমাদের ক্ষেত্রে যেটা হয়েছে, আমরা পরশুদিনই মনে হয় ডাটা কালেকশনের জন্য যাব, আর আজকে আমি যত সম্ভব ওইটার অ্যাক্রোনিম, তারা ওই সেম কাছাকাছি টপিকের সেম জিনিসেরই লিফলেট দিছে। লিফলেট বলতে তারা হচ্ছে ডাটা কালেক্টরস নিচ্ছে এই টপিকের উপর, যে মাইগ্রেশনে ফেরত আসতেছে। তো মোটিভেশনটা রাখা একটা ডিফিকাল্টি ছিল, বাট আমরা শুরুতেই একটা জিনিস ধরেই ফেলছি যে আমরা কোয়ান্টিটেটিভে যাব না, কোয়ালিটেটিভে থাকবো। কারণ আমাদের ডাটা ইন্টারপ্রেট করার এসপিএসএস ও পারি না, ডাটাও পারি না, তো সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা কোয়ালিটেটিভে থাকবো। এই ক্ষেত্রে কি ডাটা অ্যানালাইসিসে কোনো সমস্যা হবে? কিন্তু এটা নিউমেরিক্যাল জিনিসে ইয়ে করবেন, কাজ করবেন।
Yeah, so again, my advice is you have to be patient. So do we have any other questions?
Anyone have any kind of questions? Please feel free to ask. I guess কার কোনো questions নেই, the floor is still open. Yes, একজন মেসেজ লিখেছে।
Okay, no worries. I think, yeah, chat is how can we sort qualitative data? I think qualitative data is, again, these days we don't really separate qualitative from quantitative. If you have qualitative data, that's text, right? Text, there are many tools. There is one tool called Voyant. So you can Google this, Voyant tools, which goes through tremendous amount of texts to find patterns from there. Then again, আমাদের কিছু tools such as like programming languages such as R or Python, which work with like something called NLP, which is natural language processing. Again, something that helps get look into the text and get down into কি ধরনের emotion আছে টেক্সটে, or কি ধরনের sentiment নিয়ে কাজ হচ্ছে. So these are many other approaches you can use to go through massive amounts of qualitative data. I would say try out Voyant tools. It's a very useful tool for qualitative or text data mostly.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Meanwhile, Saqib Bhaiya, if you have any remarks at Journal last day about the session or anything?
Not that I've already shared all my remarks. So if there's no question, I'm happy to end the session.
I had a last kind of request. Is it possible to connect on LinkedIn?
Of course. Just drop me a message and I will be more than happy to connect.
Yeah, just do that.
So Shani Chaudhary asked, will we get the slides? I think
Of course, Mapper, I'll send them to you. Yeah.
You can just send it to me. I'll share the slides with all of them. Meanwhile, thank you so much, Saqiful Bhaiya, and to everyone who joined today. It was our last capability session from Grassroots Networks, and it was a really good experience to be hearing from you, Bhaiya.
Thank you so much, Mapper. shall we end the session today?
Hey, there is one last question from Shahmin Hashmo.
Oh,
And what is that?
Build their basics at least 6 months, I would say. It depends on how much time you're investing. Again, something I would say, please go through the resources I've shared to check.
Okay. So, কেউ যদি শেয়ার করতে চান আজকের সেশনটা কেমন লেগেছে, please feel free, and we'll just take 2 more minutes, and after that we just end the session. Okay, with that, thank you so much again. We will end the session here today. Thank you so much, Saqiful Bhaiya, again. Thanks, everyone.
You're most welcome.
Goodbye.